makes my heart so happy. And I'm just going to connect over to my doc reader as well. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. If my screen appears kind of small on your screen, feel free just to enlarge. We're going to be using this main camera, showcasing everything. Feel free to enlarge that. And yeah, but again, welcome everyone. I'm so happy that you're all here. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's watercolor class. Again, I'm Shelly. I'm also known as Letters by Shells on social media, if you have found me on there. And I basically just love to do art because I discovered art about 5 years ago when I wanted to leave my full-time job. I was really stressed out at my full-time job at the time, and I just basically needed a creative outlet and just a creative escape. I used to think about work all the time, so when I was trying to look into different hobbies, I found art as my escape. So after I would come home from work, I would just paint and just hand letter and do calligraphy, just basically invest in a lot of art supplies and just kind of like understand and have more patience within what I was creating. And after I loved it so much, I decided to, you know what, if I could do art full time, what would that look like? I took that leap. I left my full-time job, and now I just love doing art for just like different companies, brands, people that I meet all over. And I also love to teach the craft as well. I love to teach it just because I know how intimidating art can be, especially painting and using watercolors. I was avoiding it for the longest time. I thought watercolor painting was so hard until like I just finally just took the step just to tackle it and just to understand the patience of, and the beauty of it. So I love teaching everything when it comes to watercolors and hand lettering. And I hope to really just give you all the tips and techniques that I wish I knew from the very beginning when it comes to painting loose wreaths and things like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box and I'll go ahead and address them throughout the workshop itself. But for this class, I'm going to be using the following. So I'm going to be using the Princeton Select Round Brush size 4 and 6. So these are the two brushes I'll be using. I'm going to be alternating between these two different brushes. So if you just have one paintbrush, it's totally fine. I'm also going to be using the Daler-Rowney Aquafine, the watercolor pan set. I just like it because it has so many different colors to choose from and it's travel friendly. And the colors are very vibrant and pigmented. So I'll go ahead and together as a class, we'll be choosing a color palette together. And lastly, I'm going to be using my Strathmore watercolor cards because again, these are going to be fun holiday cards that you can give to your loved ones this holiday season. And I also love the texture, and I just like that it's very smooth to write or to paint on, and it's also has a nice like fun texture to it. So yeah, those are the supplies. If you have any questions about the supplies I'm using today, feel free again to type them in the chat box. But before I start any of my workshops, I like to kind of explain the whole process that goes into painting each of the elements. I'll go ahead and flip over my camera. And these are basically a few of the watercolor wreaths that I want to go ahead and paint today. Again, they're focused on like holiday theme, but if you wanted it to be like not holiday, you can just take away all like the reds and paint different elements with it. But I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about each of the elements and why I chose them to go into the wreath. So I'll go ahead and sketch it with a pencil first. So that way you understand that thought process. And then I'll go ahead and demonstrate each of the individual elements using the paint and the paintbrush. And then we'll go ahead and together tackle into like painting the final wreath together. So I'm hoping to do a couple of wreaths today for the class. So these ones are focused more on just like an all over wreath. This one just has wreaths just like on the edges right here. So I'll go ahead and kind of explain that thought process. So I feel that when it comes to a wreath, honestly, there's no like right or wrong answer. There are so many different approaches that you can do with it. Like honestly, I think anything you put together into a wreath, it'll look beautiful. If you don't have one handy, I'm going to be using a pencil to sketch everything, and I'm just going to use my coaster just to outline a circle for myself because I can't freehand a circle. But just use whichever is handy. If you have a cup, you can use that as well. So when it comes to this wreath itself, I know you don't really see the circle very well. but I'll go ahead and draw the element specifically. For some reason, I like to start at the upper left corner right here and just kind of work my way down the circle as well. So honestly, when it comes to a wreath, you can first start off with maybe a stem right here, and it could be just like a loose holiday branch. So if you took my workshop last week, we did a bunch of like holiday patterns. Those are the same type of elements that we'll be incorporating into the wreath today. So you'll notice that it's going to be like really fine stems, just like that. And I just honestly, to make it easier, whatever you do on this side right here, go ahead and just mirror it on the opposite side. So I'm going to go ahead and have the point come out this way. And then you'll see that I'm just going to draw like my rough branch. So again, this is, I don't like to really sketch things out before I paint the watercolors, but you definitely can do so just to kind of give a guideline, but you'll kind of get the idea that this is going to be the wreath that we're going to paint first. And then if you wanted to hand letter inside of it, honestly, with the hand lettering part, I have to use a pencil, because then what happens is that if I don't sketch with pencil first, I'll tend to start writing it and feel super confident. And the minute I reach towards the end, I'm not done with my word yet. So I'm like, okay, I got to just sketch everything out. Just to make it easy, let's go ahead and write joy. So whichever hand lettering you would like would be perfect. I'm gonna just write joy. Just make it fun and just to kind of like give myself a guide. But that's kind of like the individual elements that we're gonna go ahead and kind of painting. So that's the first thought process with the wreath itself. I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side right here, and just going ahead with the other wreath. So this one, I think we're going to go ahead and do like a mixture of a loose leaf first. So what that would look like is just a little bit more tedious, just because if you want the loose leaves to be shorter, but if you want them to be longer, then it wouldn't be as tedious. But I think with this one, if I were to follow this guideline that I did, I went ahead and just drew like 4 leaf stems. So that's one stem right there. And I just went ahead and drew a leaf just like that. And then maybe add another one if you can. And just kind of like repeated that same process throughout the entire circle itself. So you'll notice that I'll go ahead and paint the leaves first, and then I'll add the red dots and like the berries afterwards. So then just kind of giving myself some space. And just kind of like sketching out your thought process, what could be. Honestly, like if you wanted to just do this only, that's totally perfect, fine. And then you can honestly start like another tree branch right here if you wanted to. Let's say instead I want to do like a holiday branch that we were doing earlier. That could work as well. So just kind of like seeing your steps. I feel like the possibilities are endless. So when it comes to a wreath, when you're painting one, I don't know how you are, but I know that when I start painting it, and like the first thing that I paint, if I don't feel good about it, sometimes I'll tend just to like scrap it and like start all over again. But with the beauty of the wreath, it kind of just comes together towards the very end. So if you don't like the first element you painted, just keep on going. Just take deep breaths and keep on going. And I promise you, it'll definitely come all together. That's something that I think you just like with watercolors, you just have to kind of do it and finish it, and then you can decide how you feel about it afterwards. Just like that. And then you wanted to paint another holiday branch. So I might change this like pattern as I paint it, but I'll definitely let you know before I do make any changes. But just kind of like letting you know that the possibilities are endless, and you can choose and pick whichever ones you want to tackle. So these are the berries that I'm going to be adding afterwards. You can also do like single berries. Just like that. And so those are kind of like the wreaths that I had out. So this one is just a little bit different. It has like loose florals that I painted along with the Christmas tree. So it really is, yeah, if we have more time, I would love to do like different type of wreaths as well. But these are so far just the overall idea of when it comes to picking out a wreath and just sketching it all out first, mapping out your idea. So that way it just becomes easier when you do the painting process. So do we have any questions so far? Let me see if I can pull up the chat. Any questions? Just gonna go ahead and go over really fast.
Yep, we were just letting people know they can see the videos on Michael's website afterwards, or on the channel if they want to go back and watch it again.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. So appreciate it, Sarah. Okay, so let's go ahead. If we're feeling ready and good to go, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my watercolor paper. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my watercolor paper first to go ahead and now paint the individual elements. So that way you know the direction that I'm gonna be taking before we start painting the actual wreath itself. So I'm gonna have my water handy. So if you haven't used your paintbrush all day, just go ahead and give it a nice rinse into the water just to loosen up the brushes. And for this first example, I'm gonna be using just my green color here. Like that. And just, I haven't used this all day, so I'm gonna go ahead, just add a little bit more water just to bring up the pigments and use my blending palette right here. So I want to go ahead and paint the branch first, so that way you kind of see what that looks like. So I'm going to start with just gripping the paintbrush however is comfortable for myself, and I'm going to go ahead and paint a light stroke starting from the very bottom right here and just going up. So the goal is to kind of keep that consistent pressure. I want to make it really thin, and then you can angle your paper however is easiest for you. And then now just start painting just like light strokes, just like that. And then you'll notice that I'm really exaggerating the white space right here. I'm doing that on purpose because I'm going to go back and add another layer of the strokes on top of that. So after I paint, usually on the right hand side, I'll go ahead and flip over my paper just to make it easier to paint the opposite side. But if you don't need to do this, feel free just to keep the same angle of the paper. I have a hard time. I can't do it. So you'll notice that I started overlapping some of the branches. I was a little bit heavy-handed, so you can just go ahead and grab more pigment and just do another layer of the pigment, and it'll be good. And the reason why I love using the round brush, specifically the Princeton brushes, is because you can play around with it, because you can draw really light strokes, but also really thick strokes too. And you'll notice that I'm doing really thin strokes by just using the very tip of it, which is really convenient. And if I want to draw like heavy strokes, I can just use the belly of the brush itself. So you'll see that this is my holiday branch that I'm doing, and then just kind of stopping there. So that's basically the first branch that we'll be painting. And then with the other loose leaf itself, we're gonna go ahead and do a similar concept, but now using the belly of the paintbrush. So I'm gonna use a different green so you can see it. I'm gonna still start on the bottom right here, but now paint a light stroke going up again, like that. And now my goal is to, I'm gonna get a little bit more water. I'm going to start at the very tip right here and start applying some pressure. So using the belly of the paintbrush and then now lifting the paintbrush off the paper. So doing like a half teardrop, and I just want to finish off that teardrop shape. So I will go ahead and at the very bottom right here, I'm going to start just like a really thin stroke, just like that, just to kind of have those points meet. If you don't want it to be too much of the white space, you can go ahead and fill it even more. But I want to go ahead and control the direction of the leaf itself. So I'm going to go ahead and have the 2 points meet and just go ahead and extend it however you'd like. Just like that. So then if you went ahead and paint the remaining leaves, I'm just going to go ahead and paint just a light stem first like that, and then continue that same like teardrop shape. So first half first, and then afterwards just go ahead and add the bottom leaf right here. And I just need to control the very tip of it. Okay, so that way you can kind of just like have like a practice run. I feel that it's always fun to have like a quick practice run before you paint the real thing. Because then if I haven't painted in a long time, I'll tend to mess up a lot. So then just kind of having a quick practice run just to feel good about it. So that way you can kind of like see. And then to paint the other side, I'm just gonna turn over my paper just to make it easier for me. So just painting, I'm not gonna have them line up though. My goal is to go ahead and have them maybe like in the middle of that, like that. And painting that stem. And then another leaf just at the bottom right here. Just like that. So I hope that kind of the breakdown helped in terms of seeing how to paint the individual elements and how we're going to go ahead and combine them into the wreath itself. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side at this moment and choose another piece of paper. Actually, I'm going to use the same paper. Let's go ahead and choose a color palette together. So I think for my wreath, I like to pick color palettes ahead of time. I never used to, but then I would just, while I'm painting, I'll just like contemplate, okay, what color do I want to use next? So I just decided, okay, just need to pick colors ahead of time, just to make it easier. So I want to actually alternate between these two greens. One's of like a brighter greens, one's like a more of like a sap green color. So I want to go ahead and make sure I add two different greens depending on the wreath that I paint. So again, this is the first green that I'm going to go ahead and use, which is the first branch that we painted. And then the second green, which would be more of like a deeper color like that. And with the holiday colors, honestly, I don't usually make it too colorful because I want to just kind of make sure that it has like a nice tone of red and green into it. So I'll go ahead and choose my red color after that. And I think if I were to add another color, it would be like a deeper yellow color just to kind of help balance everything out. So this is going to be your optional color. A lot more brighter on the camera, but I feel like those colors, work. You can also incorporate the color brown if you'd like. It totally is up to you, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of stick to those colors in case that you are wondering. Okay, Yay. So go ahead and just finish up your last couple of practice runs and take deep breaths with me. And we're going to go ahead and paint the wreaths together. So I'm going to go ahead and use this card. And I'm going to paint, or I'm going to go ahead and just sketch out my circle. So whichever round circle you have, go ahead and use that. And I'm just going to paint, or not paint, I'm going to draw a very light circle though, because then afterwards I'm just going to go ahead and erase it. So you might not see it very well. It's like a very faint circle that I drew. But I'll make sure to zoom in so that way you can kind of see it. I think the first wreath that we're going to go ahead and paint, let's just go ahead and paint this one first, which is the one that had the loose leaves with the berries. And then let's go ahead and just incorporate that tree branch so you can have like a practice run, and then we'll paint another wreath with the holiday branch and the lettering in the middle. Okay, so with that, again, get your paint ready and your paintbrush. I'm going to go ahead and choose my brighter green color first. And again, just starting at the top left corner. And again, tilt the paper if you need to kind of just angle yourself better. I'm going to start painting a very light stroke first. Just like that. And get more pigment if you need to, and just painting that loose leaf. So again, using medium pressure and then heavy pressure first, like that. And then at the very bottom, just go ahead and line it up. And we're just going to go ahead and control the very tip of it to help with the direction that I want to have the leaf go into. I'm going to actually extend my leaf a little bit more. Okay, so I'm like making my leaf bigger and bigger, so I'm going to just stop and just continue on painting the rest of the leaf. So again, adding just a small stem here. I need a little bit more water. And then painting the rest. Okay. So I'm making my leaves really big, so feel free just to adjust the size according to your wreath circle. And if you need to use less water, feel free to do so. But I think mine is going to be just a total of, I don't know, I guess 5 leaves. So just, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there with that side. And then now just, if you can paint in the same direction, feel free to do so. I'm just going to help myself. So I'm going to angle the paper differently and just paint my stem first. You'll notice that from the example that I did earlier, this leaf went a little bit higher. So I feel that this is a great time for you to kind of explore if you want the leaves to be closer together or if not. Okay, so I wanted to paint 5 leaves originally, but I ended up painting the leaves a little bit closer together. So I'm going to go ahead and add one last leaf down here. That's okay. Okay, like that. Okay, so with that being said, just kind of like painting that leaf first. And now I'm gonna go ahead and, so originally when I sketched it out, I decided to do 2 leaves here, like the loose leaves, but because I painted mine a lot larger, I'm gonna go ahead and adjust it. Instead, the next one I'm gonna paint is the holiday branch. So I'm gonna use my deeper green color right here. And I'm just gonna angle the paper a little bit differently to help myself. And again, using light pressure. I'm gonna start painting right here and kind of go down until I meet that middle section. Like that. And then now just start painting the little branches. So again, if you need to use less water, feel free to do so and use the very tip of the paintbrush. I feel like it's really easy to go like heavy handed on the stroke. So just make sure if you are noticing that there's not enough white space, just lift your paintbrush, readjust your grip, and draw the strokes again. Okay, so I'm gonna get more pigment and start painting on the opposite side again. I went ahead and grabbed a little bit more pigment because then I kind of want like different colors to overlap, like have some sections like a little bit more bolder. So I did have mine a little bit, I didn't have enough like white space in between here. Kind of ended up being a puddle. That's, I think it looks fine. So I'm not gonna go back over it again. I'm just gonna go ahead and stop. So when it comes to watercolors, oftentimes, even like I'm guilty of it too, I want to go back and keep fixing it over and over again. But then I think the beauty of watercolors is that you can't really make a lot of things identical. So just honestly do it once and just take a step back and just go ahead and continue on with the next piece. Just like that. And then, so now with the holiday, so I'm basically gonna have them like alternate. So now with this next element, I wanna go ahead and paint underneath would just be the loose leaf that I did earlier here. Yeah, but I hope you're all having a good time and just having fun painting away. Hope it's just relaxing and thinking about yourself and what you're painting. Okay, I'm gonna now paint the loose leaf here. And again, it's like the exact same strokes that I did earlier, but this one I'm not having, I guess I'm making the leaves a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more longer. And you can also like alternate the sizes. The first 2 leaves are a little bit bigger. The other remaining leaves could be a little bit smaller. I feel that the reason why we can play around with the different sizes is just because when you pick up a leaf, when you find it outside, it's not usually like a perfect, all the leaves are the exact same shapes. You know, some of them might have different edges to them. And I think that's the beauty of nature. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I ended up adding a little bit more leaves on here. It's just because I painted the leaves a little bit tinier. It's okay. Just like a little bit different. But it's like the exact same idea. Just like that. So this is what it looks like so far. And I think the next branch I'm going to go ahead and paint is the same one I did over here. And I feel like I can fill it. I don't know. I'll go ahead and try that and see how it turns out. If there is some like areas that need to be filled, we can always just add different elements around it. Okay, so you'll notice that when I started painting the elements, I just basically had it go like in one direction all the way throughout. So that's kind of like the same pattern I like to kind of like continue with. So just to like help myself, I'll flip the wreath painting upside down and paint the remaining stem over here. Just like that. And for the fun part, painting the individual branches. I think I touched one of the leaves that were still wet. I don't know if that happens to you. It happens to me all the time. It's okay. If you ever have like a sand eraser, you can always erase the excess smudges off. So painting on one side first and then painting the stems on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back and make it a little bit more full. I'm just trying to see which angle would help me. Because then the reason why I'm having a hard time right now is because these elements are still wet and I want to like overlap and touch them with my hand, but I can't. So ideally you can go ahead and wait for this to dry and then paint the other branches. And painting the other side over here.
Shelly, someone's asking if you can use white watercolor to add some highlights to the leaves. Would you suggest that, or maybe some white gouache or acrylic? I'll let you answer. But
yeah. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Yeah. When it comes to the white watercolor, I feel that you, depending on the watercolor you have, you might not be able to see it very well. Just to like add more highlight to it. So I would definitely recommend like gouache paints. That will definitely help brighten it up. But I would wait for everything to dry first and then add the details in afterwards. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just stop because then I'm like going at it for a while. So with that, you'll kind of just see once it dried, I went ahead and overlapped it with different colors. So you might notice that some areas have more pigment of the green, and I did that intentionally. I feel like it just adds more depth to the wreath itself. So honestly, when it comes to watercolor wreaths, it's really up to you. You might like this style or you might just prefer like a more simple one. So this is one of the first ones that I wanted to do with you. So that way you can kind of understand how to manipulate different leaves into one wreath altogether. So if you wanted to only do like the holiday like branch, I don't know if it's called holiday branch, but if you want to just use like this branch only throughout the whole wreath, you can definitely do that as well. Or if you wanted just to do loose leaves all around the wreath, you can also do that. But definitely there's no like right or wrong way to do it. I just wanted to go ahead and point that out so that way you can kind of play around with different variations. So now with the berries, I know I didn't get to kind of demonstrate that, but with the berries itself, I'm going to either draw them in three like a cluster of 3 dots or individual berries. So I'll go ahead and zoom in. I'm just going to paint the berries first in these little sections where the 2 different leaves meet, just to make it easier, and then start building on how to paint or where to paint different berries from. So I think the hardest part is that I used to make them like super round, but honestly just do it really fast, and it doesn't have to be like a perfect circle. Okay, so this one I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to try to just do 2 right here. And then painting on this end right here. I'm just going to do 1. So it just really is up to you how many berries you want to paint. Where the 2 leaves meet, I just went ahead and did 3 here because I had more like negative space to fill. This one over here, I really don't. I might be able to do it down here, adding the 3rd berry, but I don't want to in case I make it too big and it's going to touch the other green branches. So instead, to adjust, you can go ahead and just paint it on the top right here. Okay. And so I hope that makes sense so far in terms of like the placement of the berries and kind of deciding how to kind of like place them all together. If you went ahead and do one or painted one where it was a circle and you had some like white space in between here, it also adds like a really fun dimension to it. But I tend to just fill them because I have too much water. But if you can add that negative space in between, feel free to go do so. Okay, so in my last class that I did last week, I painted way too many berries overall. I like wanted to stop, but then I couldn't. So with this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of paint some. And all I'm looking for is just like overall balance from left to right of the wreath itself. Because then right now I'm focusing so much on the berries, painting it on the outer wreath, but go ahead and remember to paint some in the inner wreath as well. Okay. And then paint maybe right here. So the berries, essentially for me, I like to use them as like a way to fill in the negative space. Okay, so honestly, definitely, it's like, I feel like there's no right or wrong way to do this. But I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. I think I painted way too many berries again. For this one, I didn't have a goal to write inside of it, which is why I went ahead and painted the elements. I guess like I went more inside the circle itself, but usually if I want to like paint or like write something inside of it, I probably would not do these berries like right here. I probably wouldn't do that. Just kind of letting you know. But I feel like it's a good size if you want to do like a first initial or like a single letter itself. Okay, so how are y'all feeling so far? I hope you're still feeling awesome and good. So this is the first wreath that I just kind of wanted to walk you through it and just demonstrate and just kind of like seeing how that looks. Honestly, you can definitely add more berries all around it. And I know someone's asking how much practice do you think is required before I try to write? So Patty, great question. If you want to write inside the wreath itself, honestly, I like to just sketch everything out with pencil first before I attempt to write inside of it, just because I feel that if you have a guide, it's a little bit easier to go from like start to finish. So definitely just sketch inside the wreath with pencil first. I recommend that. But any questions so far? How are we all feeling? You're still feeling great. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab another sheet of paper and I'm gonna paint or draw another circle. So honestly, you can still finish up your first wreath, but I want to go ahead and kind of like do different variety of wreaths today, just because I feel like with holiday wreath, there's like so many different ways to go about painting them. I hope you don't mind. But I hope you're feeling great and having fun still. So now with this second wreath, I'm gonna go ahead and just do this one where it's just like the simple holly branches from left and right, and just make sure that the branches are mirroring each other. Okay. And let's go ahead and tackle on the next wreath. But again, in the meantime, if you have questions, feel free just to type them in the chat box and I'll address them throughout the workshop. So with this one, I'm gonna start just top left-hand corner right here and just paint a very light stroke. So light stroke starting here, just like that. And now this is your part where you just want to add the single branches. So I like to just start on one side first, and then I'll paint the opposite side. That. And I'm just going to extend the very tip of it and turn the paper around just to help myself paint the other side. And I went ahead also grab more pigment, so you'll notice that's a little bit more darker.
Shelley, just a couple questions. Someone's wondering if you can show your color palette when you get a chance, your watercolor palette you're using, and then someone else is asking if you ever seal your card afterwards, or if you just leave it as is.
Oh, okay, yeah. With the sealing, I don't like to put anything on top of it. Honestly, when it comes to watercolors, I've researched it to see like how I want to have that finish, but I just like the way it looks with the paper and like just kind of like seeing the textures. So I will actually, if I am gifting this to somebody where it's like not a card or is just like a painting, I'll just frame it for the person that I'm gifting it to. I feel like you can't go wrong with that. But yeah, if you have more specific questions on like sealing the watercolor paintings, just go ahead and I haven't done more, or I guess I haven't done enough research about that. So I don't know if that answered your question. But if you have like, if you are really curious, feel free to reach out to me afterwards and I'll go ahead and do your research for you, or do the research for you. Yeah. So this is a watercolor palette that I'm using. Was that the question, Sarah? Showing the palette I'm using?
Yep, someone just wanted to see the palette that you were using. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a travel set from Daler-Rowney that I'm using. It just has like a lot of the colors that I would commonly use with my watercolor painting. So it's just really convenient to have a pre-made set like this already. I know, usually it would be in screen, but because it's like zoomed in, you don't see it. So that's one wreath that I went ahead and painted on the left-hand side right here. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and paint the stroke just down here. So go ahead and mirror the opposite side. So I'm gonna paint just a light stem. Just like that. Okay, and let's go ahead and paint the individual stems. So you can just paint one side first just to make it easier. And you can definitely make it a little bit more, having more leaves. Once it dries a little bit, go ahead and add a second layer of branches.
Shelly, a couple people are wondering if you ever put pine cones in your wreaths and if that's something you could demonstrate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks. I know I saw the question too. I love pine cones. I think they're beautiful. I really can't paint them, so I won't be able to show you how to paint them in this class. I haven't practiced them enough. It just ends up looking like a big blob. So I would love to incorporate pine cones. I think they look beautiful, but I can't paint it just yet. I'm sorry. So that's so far the wreath itself. But you're not the first person to ask me. I've gotten multiple requests about pine cones. I'll try to practice them, and then maybe I can go ahead, and if I attempt it, I'll post it on my Instagram at Letters by Shells, and I'll kind of like probably post a video on there. So after you go ahead and draw your holiday branches, again, just go ahead and have fun with the berries and add the berries however you'd like. And just painting on one side, and I'm going to go ahead and add another berry in here. And then adding just single berries. Okay. And just having fun with it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop with my berries and just kind of like saying, so I tried mirroring however the berries were. You don't have to do that, but I just wanted to kind of have myself have like a guidance on that. I might just add one more berry down here and then go ahead and stop with my berries. And I'll go ahead and write something inside of it. So with that, again, just sketch everything out with pencil first just to make it easier. I'm just gonna go ahead and write joy first. So I'm going to do it however you'd like. You can do it all like in all caps only. I'm gonna go ahead and do it in like my hand lettering. And just kind of like seeing how I want to do this. So just doing a very light sketch of it. I'm just going to write joy. So again, these pencils that I'm sketching out, it's just going to be my guide. I can go ahead and exaggerate the size of it and however I want to write it as I'm painting it. So when it comes to the hand lettering portion of this, just remember that your downstrokes are always going to be really thick lines and your upstrokes are going to be thin lines. So if you wanted to go ahead and use your paintbrush and just doing a very light stroke of it first, and then you can go back and add your downstrokes. I'm going to go ahead and paint. So my berries are still wet, so I'm going to try my best to not touch them. So again, just really light pressure first. And you can always go back and add your heavy pressure. So I'm lifting my paintbrush often when it comes to like watercolor lettering because I want to make sure that my strokes are even throughout. So now with that, I'm going to go ahead and just finish off this top part right here. adding a light pressure. So now I'm going to go back and just add thick strokes for my down strokes. Okay. And add my thick last one. And if you want to, you can go back and just draw a second or paint a second layer for your upstrokes. So that way the color matches. So I'm really manipulating the paintbrush by just using the very tip of it. So it definitely would be easier if I waited for everything to dry, but I painted this wreath last. Yay. Okay. Oh, thank you so much for being a part of this class. I really appreciate you all, and just having the time to like paint with you. It just makes my heart so happy. I don't get to paint a lot these days. So this has been so much fun just to kind of relax and paint it step by step. So again, these were the two wreaths that we painted, this one, and then after it fully dries, I'm just going to erase the pencil marks afterwards. And then this one where you got to just kind of explore the different elements. But again, you can honestly go around, like go about doing it in different ways. For this one, I just painted the loose leaves itself and added some berries at the very end. And then this one was like the holiday branches, but just a lot smaller. And this one was just a little bit more fun. I didn't know what direction I was going into. I actually don't, I'm not like thrilled about this piece, but I went ahead and just did like some like Christmas trees right here, holiday trees, and like the loose leaves, and then the branches right here. So there's like so many different ways to go about doing it, but I would love to see all of your work. If you can, if you tag us on Instagram, I'm at Letters by Shells, and go ahead and tag Make It With Michaels. We would love to see your watercolor creations and just kind of like seeing what you came up with tonight. But I know that we have some time. I'm gonna go ahead and switch my camera. I'm gonna actually stop my sharing, and I would love to see all of your beautiful paintings. If you can go ahead and hold them up for me, would love to see it. Oh, Mercedes, so beautiful. Jane, oh, I love that. So amazing. Jenny, I love that. Diana, so pretty. Oh, Shelly, we have another Shelly here. Hello. Oh, that makes me so happy. Wendy, Heather, oh, another Shelly. Oh my gosh, amazing. Love that. Oh, it just makes my heart so happy just to see all of your beautiful creations. My goodness, it's so beautiful. I love all the paintings coming to life, and I love that we all have a different approach doing it. Yay, Jacqueline, that looks beautiful. Cynthia, Judy, Hope, amazing. I would love to see more of them. If you can, give me a tag at Letters by Shells and Make It With Michaels. I'll go ahead and repost it on my Instagram so everyone else can see it as well. But oh my goodness, it means so much. Again, thank you for being a part of today's watercolor holiday wreath class. If you have any direct questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime via Instagram or my email. I would love to answer any questions. And Erica, I love that. So beautiful. My gosh, so amazing. Again, thank you again for being a part of tonight's class. I'm just reading your beautiful comments in the chat box. So thank you for being here. My goodness. So again, the next time you paint, just remember to take deep breaths and just relax. And honestly, if you're not liking the first attempt, just keep on going and then wait till the very end. It will all come together, I promise. And before I leave you all, I guess, Sarah, Ashley, do you have anything else to add for today's class?
No, just thank you so much, as always, for being such an amazing and positive, inspiring instructor. And thank you, Michaels, for giving us this nice
Yeah,
platform here to all get
thank
together and
you.
do some artwork. So it was a lot of fun, as always. Thank you.
Yeah, all that means, yeah, I feel the same way. Thank you so much for being a part of it. And I would love to chat with you all later. So just go ahead and find me on Instagram at Letters by Shells and we can connect there. But till then, thank you so much again for being a part of tonight's workshop. Continue to paint and enjoy the rest of your week and have a wonderful, if you celebrate Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. Okay, I will go ahead and leave you all. Bye. See you next time. Thank you so much again. Bye.